أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين باره الخلائق أجمعين الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين. أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بل قالوا إنا وجدنا آباءنا على أمة وإنا على آثارهم مهتدون صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. Inshallah, we will continue our lecture series that we began 2 nights ago, where I introduced the idea of, or the topic of, how we observe and how we look at the people that are around us, because we humans by nature are social beings. We are always, we are individuals who are always in the process of interacting with other people, looking at other people, observing other people. And I kind of, also mentioned the fact that this is all happening in our communities, while at the same time, our ummah and our civilization is in a crisis, and we need to revive and rebuild and reinvest in this civilization that we used to have. And so I said that, look, one of the ways that we can solve this problem is by correcting the way we look at people. And I explained, for example, yesterday I said that one of the ways we look at people is from the lens of just what they have. And we are obsessed with the material possessions that other people have, and we feel that maybe this is a sign of success. Another way we look at people is from the perspective of aib jui, as they say in Farsi, finding flaws. And somehow we feel that if we constantly do this, it is for the betterment of our community. What I mentioned yesterday, no, it's actually very, very detrimental, and your communities will not grow, actually. Today, on the third night, inshallah, I will talk about another way that we look at people and communities and other individuals. And this is also a very, very detrimental way to look at other humans. And that is to look at others from the perspective of taqlid. Taqlid over here, inshallah, I will give an introduction. What do I mean by this taqlid? What I mean will be blind imitation, blind following, while not knowing why is it that we are following such a practice. Before I get into my discussion, I want to quote a few sections from the history book of a very famous historian by the name of Mas'udi. Mas'udi has a book called Muruj al-Dhahab. It is one of the popular history books of the earlier Islamic centuries. In this book, the version that I have from volume 3, he's talking about Muawiyah and the politics of Muawiyah and Bani Umayyah. And he says that there came a point وَقَدْ بَلَغَ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ فِي طَاعَتِهِمْ لَهُ, that the people of Muawiyah, the citizens who were under Muawiyah, it reached a point, their obedience of Muawiyah reached a point that أَنَّهُ صَلَّى بِهِمْ عِنْدَ مَسِيرِهِمْ إِلَى الصِّفِّينَ الْجُمْعَةِ فِي يَوْمِ الْأَرْبِعَةِ, that their ita'ah, their obedience became to such an extent, their blind imitation of Muawiyah became to such an extent that they were on their way to the battle of Siffin, he led the Friday prayers on a Wednesday. And nobody questioned. They're like, this is, he's the leader, he's the imam, we're going to obey him. And nobody was questioning that, hey, the Friday prayer should be maybe on a Friday, not on a Wednesday. Then he says, قال المسعودي وذكر بعض الأخباريين. Some of the historians mentioned that there was a people from Ahl al-Sham, من زعمائهم, وأهل الرأي والعقل. There was a well-known intellectual elite from the people of Sham, people of Damascus, and somebody said to him, من أبو تراب هذا الذي يلعنه الإمام على المنبر. Who is this Abu Turab that the Imam in Damascus, in Sham, every Friday, every prayers, they do la'an on this Abu Turab. Who is this Abu Turab? Who is this Imam Ali he's talking about? And this elite, the scholar says, Arahu lissan min lusus al-fitan. He says, I think it is one of the thieves who was popular at the time of the early fitnas in the Muslim community, meaning the battle of Jamal and the assassination of Uthman. He says, I think it was one of the thieves, one of the famous thieves of that time. Meaning the elite didn't even know. Whatever he had been taught, whatever he had heard growing up, he says this. Then he says, وَأَخْبَرَنِي رَجُلٌ مِنْ إِخْوَانِنَا مِنْ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ. Mas'udi is saying, some of the scholars have told me that, there's a chain that's going back to the people of Sham, and some of the people of Sham, some of these scholars, they mention that كُنَّا نَقْعَدُ نَتَنَاظَرُ فِي أَبِي بَكْرٍ وَعُمَرْ وَعَلِي وَمُعَاوِيَةٍ. That there was a gathering of Ahlul Ilm, of the people of knowledge, people of fadila, people of intellectual capabilities, and they were discussing the matters of these individuals, Abu Bakr, Umar, Imam Ali and Muawiyah. And a group of the Awamun Nas came to listen. Okay, so imagine the ulama are discussing. وَكَانَ قَوْمٌ مِنَ الْعَامَّةِ يَأْتُونَ فَيَسْتَمِعُونَ مِنَّا. They wanted to hear, wow, what are these ulama talking about? So some of them said to him, one of the Ami said that, hey, and this one was a كَانَ أَعْقِلِهِمْ وَأَكْبَرِهِمْ لِحْيَةً, meaning he was the most intellectual and had the biggest beard in that group. He said to them, كَمْ تُطْنِبُونَ فِي عَلِيٍّ وَمُعَاوِيَةٍ وَفُلَانٍ وَفُلَانٍ. How much do you guys talk about these people? You're always talking about these people. So one of the Ahlul Ilm said to these Amatun Nas from the Ahlul Sham, وَقُلْتُ لَهُ فَمَا تَقُولُ أَنْتَ فِي ذَلِكَ. He said to the Ami, okay, what do you say about Ali and Muawiyah? About these people. He says, أَلَيْسَ هُوَ أَبُو فَاطِمَةَ. Isn't he the father of Fatima? The people of Sham don't even know. He says, isn't he the father of Fatima? So the person in the Ahlul Ilm said, وَقُلْتُ وَمَنْ كَانَتْ فَاطِمَةَ. So who was Fatima? قَالَ إِمْرَأَةُ النَّبِيِّ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ بِنْتُ عَائِشَةَ أُخْتِ مُعَاوِيَةَ. That Fatima was the wife of the Prophet and the daughter of Aisha, the sister of Muawiyah. قُلْتُ فَمَا كَانَتْ قِصَّةُ عَلِي. So who is this Ali? Who do you think is Ali? He says, قُتِلَ فِي غَزَاةِ حُنَيْنَ مَعَ النَّبِي. I think he was a companion who died in the Battle of Hunayn. This is the situation that the Ummah was in, that Mas'udi, 3rd, 4th century historian is recording in a very early book of history, of Tariq of Islam, that hey, this was the state of the Ummah. This is occurring because of the phenomenon of blind imitation. No one in the community is critically and intellectually thinking about the ideas and the stories and the knowledge structures that have been passed down to them. Nobody's interested. Whatever they have heard from their fathers and forefathers and whatever the institutes have been telling them, they have readily accepted it. And in fact, they are going to war over this information. They have heard this man was a thief, so let me go fight a war against him. And he is against the Imam, our Imam who is Muawiyah, so we should go fight against him. This was the phenomenon of blind imitation that occurred in some eras of Islamic history. We are unfortunately in a very similar situation. Okay, that was a preliminary point I wanted to mention. What type of taqlid are we actually talking about? As you know, we all do taqlid. It is something that is part and parcel of our life. If my car is broken down, I will do taqlid. I will go to a mechanic and I will ask him, hey, fix this, what's the problem? I don't know what the problem is. The mechanic will tell me and I will do taqlid of him. Look, in our own faith, taqlid in aqaid, in the fundamental beliefs, is actually not allowed. You cannot say, I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or I believe in the Holy Prophet, or I believe in Imam Ali because Ayatul Sistani said so. Your belief is invalid. You cannot believe in God because your parents told you to believe in God. There comes a point where you need to rationalize and understand this for yourself. So taqlid in aqaid, the fundamental aqidah, is not even allowed. It's not even allowed. But then we do taqlid in ahkam, right? The way we pray, the way we fast, and certain details of all of these things. Why are we doing taqlid in that matter? Look, this taqlid is considered following an expert, following a specialist. And this type of taqlid is not condemned. It is not condemned within Islam, and it is not even condemned in human societies. Okay, in all religions, all cultures, all civilizations, the idea of the fact that if I don't know something, I will refer to an expert. In fact, this is a reasonable thing to do. If you don't do this and start doing things on yourself, on your own, and you mess up, the society will condemn you. They will say, why did you not refer to a doctor? Why did you not refer to a mechanic? You should have gone to them. So this is something that is understood. This is not the taqlid, brothers and sisters, we're talking about. The taqlid, inshallah, the blind imitation that we look at people from this lens, is going to be a different type. One type of taqlid that is problematic is when we follow so-called specialists. Supposedly they are experts in a field. That's going to be one thing, inshallah, we'll tackle tonight. And a second type of taqlid is actually when you don't even follow experts. You just follow whatever customs and rituals that human societies have made. So we will analyze both of these. Let's look at the first type of taqlid, which is where you follow an expert. But this expert does not share the same ideas and ideology as you. I'll give you an example. Amongst the Ahlul Sunnah, do you not think they also have mujtahideen? They have muftis? Yeah? Many ulama of the Ahlul Sunnah, they're experts. They have written fiqh books and fatawa and tafsir books and all of that. So why can I not do taqlid of a Sunni mufti? He's also Muslim, he also believes in Allah, he also believes in the prophethood. Because at the end of the day, we know that behind the scenes, his sources are different. His understanding of the Sahaba is different. His understanding maybe even of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hikmah works is different. So we say that, hey, some of the fundamental beliefs, which by the way, you never did taqlid on those, remember that. You never did taqlid on the aqidah. When the aqidah matters are different, when the methodology is different, doesn't matter, he can be the most religious Muslim, but if the value system or the process is different, that expert you will not follow. Because you will say, hey, yes, I understand he is an expert, but because the initial point is different, it's obviously understood that the conclusions are going to be different. I don't agree with these conclusions. So that's just, let's say, amongst the Muslims. But now imagine in a university, let's say there are political scientists, people who come up with political theories, let's say. A political scientist or multiple political scientists, they write theories and they say, for example, theocracy, a government which is run by a religious ruler, for example, is problematic. The best way to run a government, let's say, is some democracy, for example. You will say, hey, this person is an expert, he is a specialist, so we should just do their taqlid. But what if this specialist is, let's say, a secular atheist? They, from the get-go, don't even acknowledge the idea of a theocracy. They will never entertain it. So because their initial point and their belief system is different, you cannot say, I am doing taqlid of an expert here. Your belief system is different. Yes, they may be very good in their understanding, but because the initial point was different, you cannot do taqlid over here. So when you have these theories coming out, you need to investigate this individual that is making a position over here, making a view over here. What is their belief system? Do we do this in our lives? Do we do taqlid of people who we say are experts and we are following them, but in fact, when we look deeply and closely, we will realize that it's very problematic? Yes, brothers and sisters, we do it all the time, unfortunately. Because our lenses of taqlid, we end up doing this. In almost every field, the Muslims have been doing this for the last 150, 200 years. In almost every field. From politics, to how to run a business, to how to run a school, to how to run your home, to what type of career to pick, how to run your legal system, how to run your parliament, how to design your constitution. Everything is actually taqlid. None of these are our own systems. Did we have systems before? Yes, I mentioned we had systems before. But these contemporary systems, none of them are from ours. I will give you a very real example. And I think all of you will probably resonate. You know, when you are working, when you go to work, okay? I'm sure all of you have experienced this. When you are at work, by the way, just with a show of hand, who is like in IT? Who's in IT? Computer, programming, software, okay? AI. When you are at work, 100% you have seen individuals at your workplace and you are probably wondering, how on earth did you get this job? Okay. Correct? How did you land this job? In fact, how did you even get this degree? Because you have no understanding of this field. I used to work when I was a digital marketer, actually, back in the days. And my last job was at CAA, the tow truck company in their headquarters. And that was my feeling every single day with my colleagues. I'm like, how did you guys land this job? You know, I'm putting all this effort and learning the latest technologies and the tools and understanding, you know, business concepts. You're just walking in, you know, doing absolutely nothing, and you don't seem to understand how this industry works. Well, you have a job, you know, making 60, 70K back then. I'm talking about 13, 15 years ago. It would be very frustrating. You know, this is because the education system that we all go through went through a change in the 1900s, okay? Before 1900s, in the West, so Muslims, they had their own style. From the 1700s to the 1800s, when you wanted to go into secondary school or in universities, the way that they would assess you was basically, if you want to enter university or want to pass a degree in university, you would come and give a written and an oral examination. And both the faculty members as well as the public would come and observe you. And they would give you the degree based on your actual understanding. Okay? In the 1800s to 1900s, this became just a written examination, and only the faculty members would look at this. But brothers and sisters, in the 1900s, this system changed to what is now what we call the credit system. Every high school, every university, and in fact every high school and every university across the world now, including the Muslim world, runs on a credit system. And there was a whole reason for this, why this happened. The reason why the credit system was introduced was not for your learning. It was to save money and to make money. If you read the history of the system, how the credit system came in, it was because a foundation was opened up, okay, to give teachers pensions. And in order to calculate their pensions, they had to figure out how many hours they teach. So the learning model turned from what you know to how much time and hours you spent in a class. And guess what? How much time you spend in a class does not measure how much you learned. Okay? This is the reality. And believe it or not, even in the Hawza, it's the same system. How do I know this information? One time in the summer, 2015, I was in Qom. I stayed back in Qom. And I wanted to do some summer classes. I wanted to a little bit fast track. And my principal, you know, he was giving me a little bit tough time. He says, no, you know, we can't find you teachers over the summer, this, that, whatever. Finally, we found a teacher. And he said to me, you need to complete, I don't know, 60 hours or 80 hours. I need to see proof you sat in this class over the summer for 80 hours, and then I will give you the credit. And I was very confused. I was like, I get it, you know, it's a credit system, but why 80 hours? Why doesn't he just say, I want to test you by the end of this subject and I want to check your understanding? That made me really frustrated, actually. Because 80 hours means maybe I might not even finish the book. I might not finish the whole book. This is very common. You might not finish the whole textbook. But I can still have the credit registered in my transcript. So 2015, I looked into this. I said, this is not making sense. Because for sure, Ibn Sina didn't go through a credit system. Okay? And Abu Rayhan Biruni and Sheikh Mufid and Sheikh Tusi didn't go through a credit system where they're like, okay, we did 120 hours, we're good now. They didn't do this. They were studying the books and the sciences based on their knowledge. As once they understood it, they got it. There have been books and essays written critiquing this system. One of them I will quote for you guys, that once a credit was earned, this is from 1937, so they were already critiquing the system, that it was as safe as anything in the world. It would be deposited, recorded in the registrar's saving bank, while the substance of the course could be happily forgotten. How is it possible for a student of inferior mentality and with nothing that approaches mastery of any nameable body of knowledge to be adorned after 4 years of ritualistic observances, with the same honors and privileges made noteworthy by his accomplished colleagues? Meaning, in a batch of a class, there are some students who are a little bit better. They're studying even outside of the curriculum. So he's saying, hey, how is it that both of these students will get a degree at the end of the 4 years? If a college student possesses intelligence that places him with the top 10% of the seniors, okay, why must such a mind still rank as a freshman and remain committed to the same 4-year path that is prescribed for an average fellow classmate? Okay, why is it like this? And then so on. It talks about how the whole curriculum has been parceled into small packages and is tied up by subject to whatever arbitrary requirement the professor sets. Some professor says do an essay, some professors say do a practical, some professors say I'll give you a test, some says multiple choice. Whatever requirement they give, as long as you can pull an all-nighter, which we pulled many, mashallah, in universities. We pull an all-nighter. I was at York University, so it was a good school to pull all-nighters in, right? Pull an all-nighter, pass the test, next day you get an 80, 90 average, you're good. You'll get the degree. And everyone says, my degree was useless for my practical job. This is like norm, it's a norm, it's understood. Your degree is not going to help you. Your experience, all those things are going to help you. I'm not belittling degrees, like get the degrees, but you can understand that it's so quantified into how many credits you're doing, and you can use these credits even 10 years later. I got into the UFT degree recently with my York degree 10 years later. Don't remember half of my stuff I studied in my degree, but it's transferred over. It's like a bank account, which universities, that's what they do. And this is a sort of blind taqlid we do. So we Muslims copied this system because it was the American system, the British system, Canadian system, Australian system. And obviously they were setting up schools in our Egypt and Turkey and Iran and Iraq and Pakistan, India. They set up the system, then we copied it and we said this is the way to do it. This system will usually produce ignorant people who cannot think out of the box. This is a system that produces individuals and students who cannot think out of the box because knowledge is not measured by time and credits. This is something that, one of the reasons why we don't grow. We copied a system, we don't even know where it came from. And we think this is the right way to do it. Nobody studied like this for hundreds and tens and thousands of years. Of course, there are exceptions and whatnot. There's people, many of these so-called intellectuals and elites, they didn't even go to public schools. They went to private schools where a lot of other benefits were there. But why do we do this, guys? Why do we just copy? One of the reasons is sort of a cognitive laziness. We don't want to think. We don't want to strain our minds to open up the history books and read where the system came from. It's a type of laziness. We're comfortable, system chal raha hai. Let it run. Who am I to poke the bear? Also, there's a fear of isolation. If I start critiquing this or I start making my own system, I will be isolated. And obviously there's a risk as well. But guys, creativity requires you to take risks. Creativity requires you to even fail multiple times. If you don't fail, you're not going to be creative. If you're not gonna take risks and think out of the box, you won't be able to become creative. This is one way. So this is a taqlid of supposedly specialists. But these specialists had other motives, other objectives why they made this system, but we just copied it. Then, brothers and sisters, this is, as I said, one example. We also do taqlid, and we look at people from the lens of taqlid when it comes to non-specialists. This is just awamun nas. Let's say it could be our forefathers, or it could even be just trends that society creates. Certain cultural trends, certain fashion trends, certain, whatever, movies. What's the latest movie that everybody's watching? I will also follow it. And it's created a culture of what they call FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Everybody's got FOMO, okay? You don't wanna, you're scared you might miss out on some information, some trend, everybody's watching this movie, I need to watch it as well. But we just follow along, whatever everybody's doing. For example, one of the places where this can be very, very detrimental to us and to our communities, let's say, as I said, there's many examples. One of the examples I can give is our wedding ceremonies and marriages. Okay. There are literally books explaining the phenomenon of lavish weddings that take place nowadays. Because, brothers and sisters, when you look at the history of weddings and the marriage, so look, there's a marriage and then there's a wedding. What mattered most in the pre-modern era was not the wedding. The marriage mattered. Okay, the actual marriage, the union between these two individuals, that's what mattered. Meaning, will this couple be able to live a good life? Will they be able to work together? Will they be able to raise good children? Will they be able to fulfill the objectives of life together? And the wedding is a sort of a treat for the neighborhood, people of the neighborhood, people of the village, people of the city, your friends and family. That's what it was, a side thing. You give a walima, you do a ceremony. But this trend, which started from Queen Victoria's wedding in the 1800s, okay, where she kind of set the precedent of, let's say, a lavish wedding that was seen by the public for the first time, and the white wedding dress. And there are books, as I said, I have the book names as well, that I've read many of these, that talk about how in the 1900s, when Cinderella, the story Cinderella is very old, but the Disney version of it, the cartoon version of it, and how it was pushed and promoted in media, created this idea of it's already a fairy tale, created this idea that I can live this fairy tale. Okay, I can be someone who's a average lady. I'm not a queen like that. I'm an average lady, I'm always working at home, and I maybe have a stepmother, but hey, I can access a wedding like this. And of course, I mentioned yesterday the idea of consumerism. So these things are becoming accessible, and a lavish culture is now going to get created. This culture gets pushed onto our societies in the East, where Islam came to say that, hey, the wedding is not the main thing, the marriage was the main thing. But this idea of lavish weddings, which we just follow, as I say, andadhun, blindly, we're just following it for the last century, changes the focus from the marriage to the actual wedding. And the only thing that matters now is the wedding ceremony. And you will see people saying, it is the most special day of your life. I will say, who said? These are, brothers and sisters, these are cliches. These are cliches. It's the most special day of your life. Who said why? Why is it the most special day of your life? Why isn't, for example, the birth of your child the most special day of your life? I don't know. Make anything up, put anything. Why isn't your trip to ziyarat of Imam Hussein the most special day of your life? Allahumma salli. What is the criteria by which we are defining this as the most special day? I'm not saying it's not special. It's a happy day. I'm saying these cliches are coming from marketing agencies and companies and so on. I was a marketing major, so we did consumer behavior. Kuch to yaad hai mujhe. Some of these courses I remember. Right? But we follow it. When Islam came to make life convenient and easy, Where the purpose of the Holy Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I sent the Nabi to remove the burdens and shackles that you have put upon yourself. People struggle to get married because, not because of the marriage, because of the wedding. Wedding becoming a barrier to the marriage. This is very, very problematic. We say encourage young marriage for the youth, meaning you gotta make it easier. But if your wedding expense is gonna cost 20, 30, 40K, which can easily be put in a deposit for a property, let's say, make the future of the kids. No, we'll spend it on a lavish hall, food, cake, 300, 400 guests. Sometimes it comes in our poetry. I've read many times this qasida, Jibreel Murtaza ko dula bana rahe hain, right? We've read many times this qasida. I've read many times. But when I think about the poem, the poetry, it's like, it looks like the wedding is happening in Pindi, Islamabad or somewhere. Like the whole dunya is invited, the whole world is invited, from the heavens and from the malakut and the jabarut, puri dunya dawat mein aayi hai. The wedding of Imam Ali and Bi Fatima was very simple. Their aqd was in Masjid Quba. After Imam Ali came from Makkah, Bibi Fatima was also left behind in Makkah. So as an amana, Imam Ali brought her and other women of the Bani Hashim. And a simple aqd happened in Masjid Quba, and the walima happened in the city of Medina. And also we know it was very simple. That's how the wedding happened. Simple, straightforward. And it's not like a 10-day ceremony, like every day is a different ceremony. Now look, I'm not saying don't enjoy, don't benefit, don't be happy. I'm saying, but look, sometimes we lose focus. So many weddings happen, unfortunately they still end up in divorce. Right? This is quite common. All that money gone down the drain. But I'm saying, brothers and sisters, this is happening because we are blindly imitating something. Like, we're obviously following something, right? Who are we following? It doesn't seem like we're following the teachings of the deen. That's not what I'm getting from the religion. And it is not a taqlid of experts. It is taqlid of the awamun nas. The people, people came up with this culture, people came up with these customs, and we are just following it, even though we Muslims should be able to present a different form of wedding, a different form of a ceremony. Why don't we have our own style? Why do we have to copy? And this is there, brothers and sisters, everywhere, in many, many aspects of our life. In our education, the way we get education, the type of careers we pick, the type of media we consume, the type of food we eat, everywhere you go, you will notice that a lot of it has to do with just blindly imitating some culture somebody made. We don't have no clue who made it. So this critical thinking is absent, unfortunately. I will inshallah wrap up by saying that, look, one of the main problems that this sort of a blind imitation creates in society, in our communities, is the fact that you kill all sense of creativity. This is the problem. This is the problem of blindly imitating. Where you, with your tradition and your values and your historical tradition that you have, you could have offered the world a different culture, a different way of doing things, a different form of technology, a different form of education system. You could have given them systems. But you didn't do that. You copied and you killed all creativity that you could have had. What is creativity? What is creativity? There's many definitions of it. One of the definitions we can pick over here is that coming up with some sort of a solution for your society, for your community, that has two elements. One is that it is original, and second is that it is useful. Okay, so just originality is not enough. It should also be useful. And not just usefulness is also not enough. It should also be original. I will give you an example from the seerah of the Holy Prophet, and inshallah I will wrap up tonight. Look at the creativity of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. As you all know, in Makkah, the Muslims were being persecuted and harassed for many years. And the Prophet had a couple of choices that he could have done. Look, I need to give some context here. Look, in Mecca you had the people of the Quraysh who were Muslims. So from Bani Hashim, from Bani Taqlid, from Bani Amir, and different clans, people who had become Muslims, okay? These clan people were kind of protected, meaning they were harassed, they were, mocked and persecuted, but there was no risk of them being killed by the tribes because they were their family members, and tribalism was a big thing in Arabia. So they wouldn't just kill their own family members, even if they were Muslims. Then you had the people who were not from the clans, like Maslan Bilal. Okay, he's not from any clan, he's not from Quraysh. And you had many people like this, okay, even Yasir and Sumayya, who were killed, they were not from the Quraysh. Okay, Yasir was from Yemen, Sumayya was a slave. She used to live in Mecca. So they were not from the Quraysh. When they converted, they were easy targets. Okay, so what could the Prophet do in this case? He could have copy-pasted what every other society would do. Okay, if my people are being persecuted, I can either go and fight. Okay, but if I fight, I'm going to lose. Okay, I can either go and send, at least send all the poor people away from the city because their life is in danger. But at least us, the people who are from the clans, will stay here because our life is not in danger. But the poor people, their life is in danger. Let's kick them out. Let's remove them. That's another, that's the thinking process you would have. And the third option is, hey, everybody leaves. We all leave. But that's also very problematic because everybody just leaving in Mecca, your properties, your assets, all of your families, many things are back home. He did something that nobody would assume and predict. He sent people to Habasha, Abyssinia, Ethiopia, modern Ethiopia. And when you look at the list, this is the fascinating thing. When you look at the list of people who went, they are all from the Quraysh. Okay? For example, Ja'far, brother of Imam Ali alayhi salam, he is the leader of this. And when you start going through the list, you realize, hey, these are not the poor people. These are not people like Bilal. Bilal never went to Habasha. Bilal was in the Shaib Abi Talib, was in the boycott. So why did the Prophet protect all of these elites, these people from the clans of Quraysh? And you realize the strategy that the Holy Prophet played. This is called creativity in politics, political creativity. Something that nobody would understand. When you send a group of Muslims from different clans to a different country, the Quraysh sent their mushrikeen for them. They sent people to go catch them. But can the mushrikeen go and attack this group of Muslims or no? They can't. The Prophet did a sort of checkmate. How? Because let's say there is someone from Bani Hashim who is a mushrik, masalan, and he goes and he wants to kill one of the Muslims in this group that is going to Abyssinia. Who will he kill? He won't kill anyone from the Bani Hashim. He will go and kill someone from another clan. If he goes and he attacks someone from another clan, the mushrikeen in Mecca of that clan will say, hey, why did you kill one of ours? You should have killed one of your own. So what will happen in Mecca? A civil war will start. And the Prophet knows how these guys think. So a civil war will start. So none of the mushrikeen can go and attack all of those 120 Muslims that are gone to Abyssinia. On the other hand, those Muslims who have now gone to Abyssinia, they are not all from Bani Hashim. They are from different clans. And now they all have to live in a new land for several years. They have opportunities, they have safety, they have security, they have opportunity to grow. And most importantly, the Holy Prophet was able to create a perception amongst these people that, hey, we are no longer connected with clans. Our identity is now shifting from clan to religion. Because there is someone from Bani Hashim, someone from Bani Amir, someone from Bani Taqlid, someone from Bani Umayyah, someone from Bani Fulan, and they are all living together in Abyssinia now. And none of this clan identity is going to work. If they want to live and survive together, the only identity that is going to bring all of them together is going to be their deen, Islam. This is the type of creativity that the Holy Prophet was showing even in his politics. If he just copied the norms, it would either be, hey, everybody escape, okay, you left Makkah, or let me just send the poor people, because that's what makes most sense, okay, let me send the weak, poor ones. Or, for example, we'll go to fight, as the Makkans would do. Makkans would always fight over this. Okay, if you fight, we're going to lose. This is not a matter of, I'm arrogant, I'm just going to fight it off. No, you will lose, you will get defeated. So what if I do something totally different that nobody's expecting, and I will not only make sure the mushrikeen cannot attack that group of Muslims, at the same time I will create a new identity for this whole group of migrants to Abyssinia, that their entire identity is connected with Islam. And isn't that, brothers and sisters, what happened with us over here? When we all came from our lands, someone came from Tanzania, someone came from Pakistan, someone came from India, someone came from Iraq, someone came from Iran, and different countries. And when we came here, unfortunately, we weren't creative. We set up centers in a way, the way we're setting them up back home. Imagine we set it up in a way where the only thing that was bringing us together in this foreign land was our faith and identity. That would have been a little bit creative, different. But we brought the Karachi with us here. We brought the Dar es-Salaam with us here. We brought the, Baghdad and Najaf and Karbala. We brought it here. And the youth are born, and they have no sense of affinity with those lands because they're all born here, raised here. They've gone to this whole schooling system I was telling you about, the credit system. So they have no understanding and nothing. And then we question why the youth are getting lost and misguided, and they're not coming to the masjid, and there's an identity crisis because we're just blindly imitating things. We're not thinking out of the box. We're not taking risks. So inshallah, I hope that we can revisit some of these lenses that we look at other people from, be more critical, and invest in our communities in terms of education, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow, because tomorrow's lens is going to be the lens which is gonna make us progress in our communities. So these first three lenses I mentioned are detrimental, they stagnate us, they make us weak. Inshallah, tomorrow's lens we're going to discuss is going to be, what if I start to look at people around me, even the bad people, even the evil people, and I looked at them from the lens of what can I learn from them? And what can I learn from their behavior, their conduct? That can change the entire ballgame, as the earlier Muslims would do, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.